Now, Mike Davis is a guy that we'll begin to talk about here. He's a guy that has a pretty unique skill set in some ways, but for his NFL, for how he projects to the NFL, he is going to have to develop different aspects of his game. Let's look at the positives with Mike Davis before we go into some of the things that he'll need to work on to be able to improve to be a starter or even a heavy contributor at the NFL level. Ran a decent 40 time, a 4.53 40 time at his pro day. Didn't really do anything at the combine except bench press 225 pounds 10 times. 32.5 inch vertical is it's on the lower end of things, definitely one of the worst numbers for a wide receiver. And a 9'9" broad jump. Again, he struggled in that area a little bit too. So not the athleticism or explosion you see from the top level wide receivers in the draft. Height, 6 foot. It's decent for a receiver. Right around the average height, 197 pounds. So he's got some weight to his frame, which is good. A 4-year guy from Texas. Some of the strengths when you look at Mike Davis, he has very good length, long arms. He can go and reach and attack the football with a pretty good catch radius. He's got big hands, big mitts to pull on the ball that should help him as he improves his concentration and as he gets better at catching the football with his hands and away from his body. He's a willing and physical blocker, which is a little bit funny because he's not necessarily the most physical receiver, and he doesn't do necessarily the best things in contested situations when it comes to jump balls and things of that nature. But we'll get to that in a little bit. He is a willing and physical blocker, though. He will get downfield. He will get into a defender's body. He will push them around if he can get locked on him. He does need a little work in technique, but the fact that he's willing to be able to block in that way is definitely a positive in terms of his signs for the future. He's good enough straight line speed that defenses will need to respect him deep, even in the NFL. He's definitely not a burner. He's not somebody who can consistently beat a defense deep, but it's good enough, and he's savvy enough when it comes to tracking the ball over either shoulder, getting open down the field, getting in behind the defense, that defenses are going to have to be aware of it and alert of it. And so it may change the way that they approach whatever offense Davis is on in terms of their defensive setup. He's got good vertical acceleration. He's very much a straight line player. So when it comes to getting straight down the field, he can get down in a hurry, and he has the acceleration to be able to get a step on a defensive back in that way. Again, we mentioned the big catch radius. He comes with his long arms and his hand size. He doesn't necessarily utilize that. We'll talk more about that in a second. But he does have the big radius if he can develop the rest of his game. He is durable. 4 years at Texas, barely missed any time, fought through some injuries to play. So he's a guy who has definitely seen the field a lot, has a lot of experience, but unfortunately for him, and it makes him a little bit hard to project on the NFL level, he had to endure some pretty awful quarterbacking at Texas. So no matter who was under center during his time, there was very sporadic play, a lot of inaccurate throws. Watching the tape, it was almost hard to gauge Davis because some balls were just not even in his vicinity when he went to catch them. Some of the weaknesses for Davis, and there's quite a few. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be an NFL contributor. Average overall athlete. He's pretty limited as a route runner. Suspect hands. He'll drop the ball. He'll bobble the ball sometimes. He doesn't do a very good job in physical competitive situations, which, again, I said, for someone with his length and his hand size and just his overall thickness to his upper body, you would think that he would be a little bit better in situations like that. That's maybe the thing that concerns me most, that he's not very tough when it comes to being challenged by defensive backs. He can be significantly altered in his patterns by physical corners who will get their hands into his body. He's got a lot of work to do. Right now, I don't see him as being anything more than a fourth receiver probably. I won't even give him a third receiver at this point. Right now, Davis just doesn't have the tools to be able to be a number one or number two or play the slot or any of those things right now. His stock is down almost $10,000 from his initial price on playthedraft.com. So he's a guy who's definitely been hurt a little bit by the pre-draft process. Would not surprise me if Davis doesn't get drafted. I think that's probably a harsher analysis than you'll hear from most people, but that's how I see Davis at this point. I don't know that he's ready to be a significant contributor at the NFL level, and there's just a lot of receivers in this draft.